What is up, fight fans? It is 2 o'clock in the Mile High, so you know what that means. It is time for the MMA plug presented to you by Mile High Sports. Now, as you recognize, we are here on this beautiful new studio set here in the Mile High Sports Network studio. And also, in case you didn't notice, we got a surprise. The Big Yins is back here on set with us here today. Josh Fremd, how you doing, my man?
Oh, man, I'm excited to be back here. This whole new setup, and we finally got the time figured out. I can make it back. I'm excited to be back.
Absolutely. You know, for those who are longtime listeners of the MMA plug, Josh was around on the program for more than a year consecutively of episodes, and we had a time slot change as far as the show goes, but it happened to run into his training schedule, so we just weren't able to do it on a week in, week out basis. But now that we've shifted back to this 2 p.m. time slot, he's able to make it with training, and we're off and running, my man. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, it's really good, especially since now that, we're not on the radio per se, because I was late. I'm OB on brand. So we were able to do this on the right time, and I don't have to be walking in and ruining anything anymore.
Well, I'm glad that you're the one who acknowledged it before I had to point it out.
Self-awareness is crucial, man. And that's
because in typical Josh fashion, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so the question before Josh walked in was, how many points of contact do we have to have for Josh to make it on time? So
I even called him after practice. I was like, "Hey, man, it's 2 o'clock, right?" Yeah, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And
we talked at the gym this morning. He called me after practice, and then I get a text 10 minutes before the show starts, coming in hot.
Yeah,
just as on brand as it could possibly be for Josh Fremd here, ladies and gentlemen.
And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way.
But folks, we want to give a shout out to the rest of the crew here at the Mile High Sports Network. They've got tremendous things going on all the way around, for the Core 4 coverage, and especially right now with things in full tilt for the football season. You have Colorado football, the SCO Buff show, or SCO show, I should say, with Anilo. That's a great addition here during the football season. Obviously, there's going to be no shortage of headlines and coverage for everything Coach Prime related for the next couple of months. There's also going to be the NFL starting this weekend, Josh. So I don't know about you, but I've been going at it pretty hard with this summer of fights that we've had. I mean, basically almost every weekend with the exception of a couple, but it's been a busy summer, and I am so excited to this Sunday just do absolutely nothing and sit there and enjoy the day with Scott Hansen.
Rot on your couch.
Oh, just
and
couch
watch
rot
football
all day long with NFL Red Zone. But one thing that I'm also going to be checking for updates throughout the day and for any of the latest and greatest is our guys here from the Mile High Sports Network, because they will definitely give you the best coverage on all things Broncos related. Now, we also want to make sure that you're checking out all of the merch, the website, the podcast network, and give Mile High Sports a follow on all social channels. As mentioned, it's been quite the time to be a fan of the pugilistic arts here in the state of Colorado, especially here along the Front Range, given that we've had so many events. And in the next few weeks, it's going to stay on brand for that as well. We had a couple of weeks off from big time events here on the local scene, but starting this weekend and going through pretty much early November and beyond is shows from the LFA to One Championship to some of the different bare knuckle promotions, caged grappling, so many different things. Starting it off this weekend, there is One Championship 168 going down at Ball Arena. We're going to talk a little bit more on this later on the program, so we're not going to spend too much on One Championship right here, right now. But just have that on your calendars that it's going to be happening this weekend at Ball Arena. You could check that out on Amazon Prime or watch.onefc.com. This Sunday, there is going to be a submission grappling event going down at the Boulder County Fairgrounds. That is Mat Wars 2. A lot of the familiar faces that you see across a lot of these pro submission grappling events in the Denver area, you are going to see on this Boulder show. So if you have the opportunity and you have the day free on Sunday and football's not your thing, head out to the Boulder County Fairgrounds and check out some submission grappling and support the local scene there. Following that, we have the Colorado Combative Sports Academy Smoker. That is going to be an exhibition Muay Thai event going down at the Colorado Combative Sports Academy gym. That's just north of town on September 21st. It's going to be an opportunity for a lot of these early practitioners to go out there and get some experience. Josh, you could speak to that a little bit. What was it like when you fought in your first smoker, and how did that go about for you?
My smokers were usually, after school in the football fields. But
Aside from those,
your first fight is it's amazing. You're scared, you're nervous, and you have all this anxiety. And oh man, it's just a crazy experience. And I'm very excited for people who are getting the opportunity or taking their opportunity at these smokers to test their mettle, see if this is something that they really want to do. And, I think that honestly, every single person in the world should get into a real fight at some point in their lives. And I think that it teaches a lot. So that's good for them.
I agree. And I think that the smoker environment is a
It's a safe
environment for you to go out there and to see if it really is for you. There's always the question that I have from prospective new students who come into the gym asking how quickly it can be before they fight, or what is the timeline to get to there. Like, well, first off, you got to get up to speed in sparring. Like, if you haven't sparred before, you're nowhere near even prepared to fight. But if you've never then been in some sort of exhibition situation like a smoker or one of these early just discipline specific events, whether it be competing in the grappling side of things, striking specific shows, something to that effect, if you've never felt what it's like at 100% intensity, then you're nowhere near prepared to put all things together in a mixed martial arts event.
Yeah, sometimes words are just words. I feel like you should just let them sign the NDA. I'm not the NDA. Oh, my bad. Sign the waiver. Sorry, guys. Sign the waiver, and then, hey, get in the cage. Let's fight. Give them the gloves, and then they'll figure it out pretty quick. Like, oh, maybe I should do what you just said. Take the time and learn. Some people don't want to hear that, though.
Exactly, and some definitely have to learn the hard way, but ultimately, and especially as an advocate for the growth of the sport, I have to say from my side of the business that, hey, you've gotta take this as it progresses, because more times than not, what we see, Josh, is there's the select few who then go on to be professional fighters, or guys who do this for a long time like yourself, who you might go in that first time and you get to put it on you a little bit, but you realize that, what, I love this and I know how much I don't know, so I want to keep coming back.
Yeah.
But that is a slim percentage in contrast to the majority who they go in and they get it put on them that first time and they're like, I'm never doing this again. I'm not coming back. This isn't for me.
It's literally like Oklahoma drills in football. It just teaches you who's a basketball player. You're going to learn real quick what you're about and what you're not.
Exactly. So in the sense of the long term, though, there might be some who, you might need a little bit more growth through time to actually get to that point, right? As opposed to some who are going to reach that mindset point earlier on. What we don't want from the professional side of things is we don't want people to be burned from being interested in potentially competing or being a part of the sport and the community altogether.
Yeah.
So that's why, from the professional end of things, we have to say, hey, take this as it comes along and trust your coaches. You should be trained by somebody or being coached before going and competing. Don't have your homie or your dad or someone who has no clue about fighting go be the one who's cornering you in these situations, because that will not end well for you. I promise you, in the long run, that is not going to be a good situation. Get yourself in the gym and go start competing in these events. There's going to be shows like Fight to Wins and all these other regular or entry level type competitions that you can go and get yourself invested in. I digress. Following from that, you have Colorado Jiu-Jitsu Club, which is going to be happening at the Colorado Tattoo Convention and Exposition at the National Western Complex on September 28th. Now, This is a show that's going to have a couple of UFC vets in the mix. There is a grudge match of a couple of high-level grapplers from the local scene in the main event. You have Chad the Dad Myers taking on Luis Rodriguez out of 10th Planet and Imperial Shogun. I know Luis, he trains all over the place. I mean, there's not an open mat that kid doesn't hit. But this is a match that, Josh, we've seen some back and forth between these guys, and I'm excited to see on the local scene, especially in the wake of, or the boom, I should say, of CJI and the awareness that helped create for the submission grappling world. We have a little bit of heat going on here in the local scene between a couple of guys who are high level, entertaining grapplers. I'm excited to see what kind of show they'll be able to put forth in front of a giant crowd at this exposition.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like you said, it's a grudge match. These guys don't like each other. It's high level. That's what always makes it so exciting when you put all of those ingredients together. It's gonna be a show.
100%. Chad in his last matchup goes out there with a blindfold on and secures a finish.
Sick.
Then you have a crowd pleaser in Luis, who, I mean, he's in the setup of a twister and looks out to the crowd, hypes him up, flips the bird at somebody chirping at him from the front row, and then finishes it off. Like, to be that in control on a submission that is that technical to be able to pull off. Like, I mean, I'm excited to see what these guys have. You have
disrespect, disrespect on that.
And like I said, I mean, it combines a couple of my favorite things in the world: jiu-jitsu and
flipping people off
of MMA. Well, that too.
Yeah, this guy flips the bird at random people on the street.
You catch me on a bad day in traffic. Yeah, it's going to be coming. But following that, you have Battle MMA Championships on October 5th at the Norris Penrose Event Center down in Colorado Springs. Battle MMA has been consistent putting out shows on the Front Range and has provided a platform for a lot of these fighters in this footprint to be able to have the opportunity to then go on to shows at different levels. You have vets of the show like Isaiah Torres going to be on this upcoming LFA card that we're going to talk about in just a moment. You have Elijah Swift Smith, who's going to be on the Contender series in a couple of weeks, who has fought on Battle MMA Championships. So they're doing some big things in terms of providing a proving grounds platform for these fighters in our area to be able to grow their skills and showcase what they have to offer. So make sure that you check them out down there in Colorado Springs. The weekend following that, Josh, these are some of my favorite shows to go to. And yes, I'm biased because I'm a part of it, but we are the only all Muay Thai exclusive promotion in the state of Colorado. That is the 5280 Muay Thai Fight Series. That's going to be happening on October 12th down at the Stampede. I'm excited for that show.
That's going to be awesome. I think that those shows are always exciting. I know I had the opportunity of calling them the last round that they were there, and exclusively Muay Thai. I think if you're a martial arts nerd and you like each individual discipline, this is great. And it was packed out for Muay Thai. Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah. You have to love seeing the support from the local scene, and I can only imagine this being a bigger show with titles on the line the way that they are.
Yeah, and it was almost like a gym war that we had there, right? Because it was packed out, and each side was like you could tell who was here for who. So that was amazing support from each gym.
All the camps were flying their banners high for sure. Following that, the next weekend, you have the Combat Sports Report Invitational. It's a 16-man sub-only tournament that is going to be happening October 19th at the Celebrity Confetti Events Place. The next week after that, at the Dobson Arena in Vail, one of the highest venues for mixed martial arts competition out there in the world, one of the two highest venues in all of North America. Josh headlined a card there. That is the LFA returning to the Dobson Arena. The next day after that, we have Colorado Combat Club making their highly anticipated return at the Stampede October 26th. That is going to be a matinee show, so you'll be able to be out of there for all of your Halloween weekend festivities. And in November, and it's pending a hearing with the commission, but it's basically all things are looking like they're going to be a go for shows on the local level. But Sparta will be bringing in bare knuckle for local promotions here in November. That will be on the 9th at the Blue Credit Arena in Loveland, formerly the Budweiser Event Center. Now, just because we have to transition out of this first segment here quick, Josh, I just want to talk about the Contender Series tonight and a couple of the guys that are going to be on the card. You have Austin Bashi, who is one of the most highly touted prospects of this season, who has an unblemished 12-0 record already. He has wins over respected veterans like Oscar, and get this, he's 22.
22. That's and Askar is not an easy win. That's a tough individual there, and he's very good. So for a 22-year-old to go out there and win that, he deserves this spot on the Dana White Contender Series, and I'm excited to go out and see this.
Certainly, and from a nerd standpoint, though, and yeah, this is absolutely a nerd thing right here because there's probably very few out there who even knew that that the guy he's fighting tonight is the second one. But the first matchup was one that I was excited as soon as they announced the original signees for this season of the Contender Series. This was supposed to be a matchup with another white-hot prospect with a tremendous amount of steam behind his name in Tommy Gunn McMillan, who is 6-0. He's 26 years old. He trains out of the lab down in Phoenix. But as it goes sometimes in the hurt business, Tommy had an injury in fight camp and wasn't able to compete this evening. Hopefully that's an opportunity that gets ran back for him. I mean, obviously, with his record and with the steam behind him, he is already on the radar. It's just a matter of once he's healed and has the chance to get back into the thick of things.
Yeah.
But another kid on this card is Gage Young. He's taken on Quillen Salkid. Gage is 8-1. He's 24 years old. He's coming out of Ignite MMA in Kansas City. He's under the tutelage of vets like Zach Cummings and Jason High. Originally cut his teeth at Glory MMA under the guidance of James Krause. You know, this is a kid who he's been around a lot of high-level guys from the very beginning of his career, has spent some time out in Denver for a little while training. You know, he's definitely a kid who has a lot of promise, but is he ready for the big show? We will see tonight. But just like that, folks, we're going to wrap up this segment right here. After this, we're going to be talking this week's UFC Fight Night card, talking a couple of the other events in the combat sports world, and then closing out the hour by going 3 rounds. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you about the Guardian Project. The Guardian Project is aimed to have jiu-jitsu for all. The mission is the Guardian being a 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to providing free youth jiu-jitsu scholarships to the undeserved youth around the world. Guardian is dedicated to offering children year-round stability and consistency through their programs, focusing not just on their physical transformation, but also on fostering positive friendships, mentorship opportunities, and a secure environment during challenging times. By partnering with established and trustworthy academies, donors can trust that a minimum of 85% of their contributions directly fund the scholarships they support. 391 undeserved youth students are currently fully sponsored within the 17 projects worldwide. Please visit FactoryXMuayThai.com to make your tax-deductible donation and help support a student in our community today. All right, now, getting back to it here, folks, we are going to dive into this weekend's UFC Fight Night preview. Josh, this card this weekend is a top 10 matchup of the welterweight division. You have Durinho, the former title challenger, Gilbert Burns, taking on Sean Brady. Now, you have Gilbert Burns defending his post at the number 6 spot against Sean Brady, who's trying to continue his climb. What do you think about this matchup?
This is an awesome matchup for guys who are really who really understand what's going on in this sport. The skill that you're going to see out there with, first off, Gilbert Burns, like that's all you have to say when it comes to the skill of that guy possesses with jiu-jitsu, with striking. But then Sean Brady's just a dog. I don't know. I don't know what the cussing is like I can do on here because it's not the radio, but I won't do it, guys. But Sean Brady is a blank brick house. Like that guy is stacked and he has tremendous skill. So I'm going to be sitting there on the couch watching this fight glued to the TV the whole time.
Yeah, no, this is a tremendous fight from a matchup standpoint. But Josh, one thing I think that we do have to make note of for this fight from a styles perspective is oftentimes when we see two guys who have elite level grappling capability,
Yeah.
which
Tails old time.
I mean, Gilbert Burns, ADCC champ. I mean, he's one of the most decorated, actual, true, specific
Jiu-jitsu.
grapplers in the entire UFC. But
Mhm.
then you have a guy like Sean Brady, who is another top tier, high level black belt grappler and a submission specialist. Oftentimes, when that is the chess match, we end up seeing a striker's duel.
Yeah.
And I think that if Gilbert Burns is, dare I say, not chinny after his last couple of appearances, I mean, he did get beat up in a couple of those fights, and I mean, hey, he looked good against Jack, but then once Jack found his shots, those were devastating. I mean,
Yeah.
and at his age, with some of the wars that he's been in, it's only a matter of time before that fighter hits that cliff, right?
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
only so many times that the punch ticker can be clicked before it just goes.
there is one athlete that is always and forever gonna be undefeated.
Father
Father
time.
Time.
100%. So that's the big question in this matchup. If it does stay a fight on the feet, I love the chances of Gilbert Burns. I think that he has the more explosive and devastating striking if we're talking between the two of them. Not to say that Sean Brady doesn't have some pop, but I just think that Gilbert Burns, the way that he explodes and when he finds the right hand, it cracks. Moving along to the co-main event, you have a top-ranked matchup in the women's flyweight division. You have number 6, Jessica Andrade, former women's 115 champion, title challenger in multiple divisions, potential candidate for a women's BMF fight if they ever were to have one. She will be taking on the rising prospect, number 8 ranked Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva being the kicking specialist. I'm interested to see how her side kicking and that little oblique and side teep that she uses, and for reference, kind of that split karate stance and the taekwondo kicks, how does that fare against just a brute juggernaut bull type of force the way that Jessica Andrade is?
Well, you see, Jordan, there's 2 ways that that can happen, and you can either land those kicks from the outside and keep them at bay, or you miss, or they do a good job avoiding, and they come in and just obliterate your face. Like, there's only 2 ways it can go. So that's an interesting stylistic matchup that I'm excited to see.
Is there the risk?
Always risk.
Is there the risk that those side kicks get caught and an overhand comes, over the top, a catch and counter situation?
I would say there's a risk for that, but I think the more risk when it comes to a side kick is a parry and overhand.
Okay.
Because they're trying with a side kick, especially you're trying to go you're trying to go straight forward with it. And if you parry it and come over the top, I think there's more of a risk there. But to catch an overhand right, then you're at a full leg away. And Andrade has short little arms. So
Short
I,
little
that would
arms,
I,
but
that's what
those are the T-Rex arms that have cannonballs on the fists.
yeah, agreed. But also legs are longer than arms
True, true. Yeah.
for most humans.
For most humans, there's I'm sure Rogan would probably enter the chat at this stage in time, walking around on his knuckles out there. But we're gonna talk a little bit more on Jessica Andrade later on in the program. In the men's featherweight division, in the feature fight, Josh, this is a low-key banger that has flown underneath the radar, but ever since it was announced, thought, oh my God, this is one for, again, us MMA nerds and us purists. This is a fight that I'm glued to right here. I mean, this to me has the potential for fight of the night. You have Kyle Nelson, who goes out there. I mean, he looks like a Nordic Viking type of warrior in the first place, but he goes out there, leaves it all out on the line. But he's going out against a guy in Steve Mean Machine Garcia, who is the definition of a kill or be killed type of fighter. And Mean Machine is the straight up archetype of Mexican fighter. He has
I was going to ask you, what does Steve look like there, Jordan? If you're going to say that Kyle's a Nordic Viking,
oh no, I'm saying in the sense of from a style standpoint, he will stand in the pocket.
he will
He is
bang.
willing to take one, to give one. He's willing to take two to give you one because he knows that if he can land his one, Oh, it's going to produce devastating results as evidenced by his resume and the amount of finishes and bonuses that he's been able to earn so far in the UFC in his run. Was a guy who has competed in Bellator. He was in the LFA. He's been around on the scene for a long time, and early in his career, way back in the Bellator days, fought high-level dudes like Joe Warren when he was just a pup in the game. So now that he's a veteran and is able to take some of those experiences from top tier guys, has trained in Albuquerque, had a plethora of great minds and training partners at Jackson Wink throughout the years, and just his travels now to this stage. That's a dangerous fighter. I have always said that the biggest danger to Mean Machine is himself, because he at times has had issues on the scale.
Mhm.
If he is able to make the weight and he's not completely drained, he is as dangerous as anybody gets. He's basically, if you remember, the best of the best of what Kelvin Gastelum was able to do. And when you're asking, okay, looks, it's kind of the same thing. He's not going to blow you away. He's not going to go out there and win some sort of posing contest or anything like that. He loves his food, but man can fight. And when
Yeah.
he goes out there and throws his fists with either hand, he has such tremendous pop that produces devastating results that, again, even on the regional level, beat high level guys who are now in the UFC, and is somebody who, when he's healthy, is somebody who you always have to watch out for in that featherweight division.
And that's the beauty of fighting, Jordan, is there is no archetype for what's going to make you the best fighter or what's going to make you good at fighting. There's going to be guys like Kelvin Gastelum, like Steve Garcia, who, yeah, I mean, you look at him, you're not going to be blown away like, oh, that guy's not an athlete per se, but fighting's different, baby. It's either you have it or you don't. And if you have it, who cares what you look like?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the next fight that was originally scheduled on the card was just announced as being canceled. That was Matt Schnell against Alessandro Costa.
That is so heartbreaking. You're just telling me now that it's, oh,
Yeah, that one's off the card.
that stinks.
But from that, this one, at least, I mean, hey, he's not the most technical in the world, but he's been out here and he's worked with that crew at Onyx, and I can imagine that we'll see the most technically refined version of him so far. But a
Relatively
guy,
speaking.
relatively speaking, exactly, but someone who is fun to watch just because he is a blood and guts type of fighter who will leave it all out there, and that is Trevor Peak. He is going to be taking on Yanal Ashmos. Now, Trevor Peak, like I say, he made his way into the UFC, and I mean, the man, when he, like, I met him at the UFC Denver event, and just, I'm just talking with him and shaking his hand, like, in relational perspective, like, oh my god, man, you've got some paws on you, sir.
Well, Jordan's been cursed with incredibly small hands, so
Story of my life.
it's like that lawyer from It's Always Sunny.
45 to 47.
And
But
I've worked with guys like Trevor Peak, like he is a blue collar type of guy. Like the reason his paws are like that is because of the work that he's done through his life.
oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, when you watch him, when he throws just like the tomahawk hammer fists in the process, like that's just a dude who's scrapping, like you mentioned. He's right off the backyard on the on the backfields of the school lot.
Yeah, yeah. He's so exciting to watch, and this is a great matchup, both of them. Ooh, that's an under the radar one right there.
Certainly. And on the prelims, there's a couple of fights that we have to mention here that I think are worth noting and you have to keep your eyes on. In the main event of the prelims, we have friend of the program in OSP, Ovis St. Preux. He is taken on Superman Ryan Spann. Now, that being a light heavyweight matchup, and both of these guys just, take a look at their resume. It's there's a high chance that this one does not go the distance. One of them is going to get finished in the process, is the high likelihood. I mean, if we say that sometimes and then it ends up being belly bumping for 15.
Well, I mean, I think that I think this one will go to a decision. I think that both guys are incredibly dangerous, and they both know that, and they both know where they're at in their careers right now. And I think that you have to put those variables in your mindset when making this decision, because, like you said, oh, this is look at their resume; it's going to be a finish, and like sometimes that doesn't happen. So I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm not a betting guy. I can't bet. I can't do it anymore. Can't gamble. But if I were to, I'd say decision.
If you were to ask me if I were to have any lean, I would say Ryan Spann probably gets it done inside the frame. I mean, OSP again, it's a father time sort of situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, that'll be the big question there. Following that though, you have one of the highest betting favorites in UFC history. You have Isaac the Midwest Choppa Dolgarian taking on Brendan Marat. Now, Isaac suffered his first loss in his last fight against Christian C. Rod Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez is an extremely talented young rising prospect as well himself. Isaac Dolgarian has he's been on record in interviews throughout this camp saying that first loss was something that was an invaluable experience to him, and that he probably wouldn't have turned over some of the layers of growth over the last couple of months that he has had he not faced that sort of adversity in that particular fight. And, Josh, you can speak to it better than I can. I'll leave that to you to speak on the experience factor there, and then B, that's your teammate.
Yeah, I mean, losing sucks, but you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about what you need to do in the process to get better. And just on Isaac himself as a man, as an athlete, like that guy has made all the right decisions. He's working his butt off. No cussing, Josh. And I think that he has shown, just from what I've seen, he's grown so much in the last couple months. And there's a reason why he's the highest betting favorite on the card in UFC history, because the guy is that talented. He's that good. And I just can't wait for him to go out there and prove it.
Certainly. And I think that if we were to give any sort of insight as to how it may go, I mean, make no mistake about it, he has definitely grown in lots of ways throughout his game, but
definitely not height wise though.
Yeah, not the height side of things, gotta love them though. But hey, that's another example of someone with arms that might be longer than the legs.
Yeah, that guy can scratch his kneecaps without bending over. That's crazy.
And that is also why his elbows are so devastating and so dangerous, which you can expect to see those elbows going toward Brennan's direction. And if Isaac has anything to say towards it, he's gonna make him bleed his own blood. A couple of other matchups to speak about before we transition things here. You have a couple of former LFA standouts in Jackie Amarine taking on Little Monster Vanessa Demopoulos. Josh, a couple of grappling specialists. They've got some heat. They've got some history with each other prior to the UFC. Any thoughts on this matchup?
I'm not going to say my thoughts, but I think the Vanessa is a great grappler. I think Jacqueline is a great grappler. And yeah, there is some history between them, and I'm excited to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, I think that's very well said on that side of things. I think that Vanessa is definitely the more well-rounded fighter, and I think that no matter what you want to say, people could say anything about the antics, the call-outs, the rhetoric behind some of the things that she says. One thing that you can never not say about Vanessa, though, is that she doesn't have dog in her. Like, when it gets to the nitty-gritty, she will fight and scrap to the very last breath.
She is a fighter through and through, and she's a dog through and through. But that little laugh you just did just gave me some PTSD for when she was training out here. I was like, it reminded me when I was at the gym and I heard it, and I was like, oh. And I love her, but that's crazy.
Well, that's exactly why I did it. One matchup that I want to hit real quick, Josh, we have a matchup in the middleweight division. We have Andre Petrosky taking on Dylan Budka.
Yeah. Hey, props to Andre. He beat me in the last go. More like a snooze fest, but whatever. I love Andre. I have much respect for Andre. I used to train out here. Had the opportunity to share the cage with him. Go out and do your thing, man. Shut this kid up. Dylan Budka, more like Dylan Butt.
Yeah, and I mean, hence why I had to bring up this fight.
I mean, I don't even know the kid, but just hearing what he says,
there's been some talk, there's been some chatter, there's history, with the Andre fight, all of that. So why not have a primary source close to the situation speak on it directly?
I hate speaking on it because I just hate speaking on fighters in general. But no, Dylan, good luck, dude. I hope you go out and do your thing. Andre, good luck. Hope you both end up out of it healthy. And I hope it's a good fight.
Absolutely. Folks, we're going to transition things here as we go into talking about the weekend rundown of a couple of events going on elsewhere outside of the UFC, one of which being One Championship 168. You can catch that action on Amazon Prime, watch.onefc.com, or live in person here at Ball Arena. In the main event, you have a matchup between Jonathan Haggerty and Superlek. This is a Muay Thai fight in the cage. And Josh, these are two of the arguable greatest Art of Eight Limbs fighters that have ever competed. And we get to see them right here in the Mile High City this Friday night.
That's going to be amazing.
Oh, it's going to be a tremendous display of skilled violence there in that matchup. I mean, you have also a couple of guys who go for it. That's the one thing that I really love about this matchup is both of these guys are, for lack of a better reference, full send style fighters. And they can also bend, dip, and go every which way direction, enter the matrix, and it's going to be something that you will see some of just the most insane level of Muay Thai that the state of Colorado has ever seen happen here. And then following that, you also have a matchup between Leon Harrison and Saxon. You know, this is another great
Just
Art
a
of Eight Limbs.
banger.
Yeah, it's tremendous. Something that you absolutely have to love seeing on the bill for the card. On the main card as well, you have former champion in Angla and Song. He's taken on Shamil Edragon. Now, the undefeated Turk is taken on, like we say, the former champion out of Myanmar. This guy is an international sensation. He is a straight up superstar. You know, whenever you see him go back home, it's like those old clips of the Beatles that you saw back in the day. You know, this guy really is a hero to the people. And, you know, I mean, had a chance just to briefly interact at the last One Championship show and just seems like a top tier individual. You know, all of the folks that I know down at Killcliff who have trained with him through the years have said that he's just a real genuine person. So you have to always just tip your cap to the vets who have been around for that long and who also do everything that they can to help the young guys.
Good people.
Good people. A couple of other fights here on the main card that we want to discuss. You have the longtime UFC vet, now stalwart of One Championship, who has been in a couple of different competitive realms for him. You have John Lineker taking on Asa Tempao. That's a fight that will not go the distance. I promise you that. Again, that's going to be a striking only affair. John Lineker with the hands of stone and Asa Tempao, another guy who is a killer be killed type of fighter. He's either going to go out there and find his mark, potentially go shin to chin, albeit Lineker doesn't really have a neck, so it's going to be hard to go knock him out. But again, another opportunity for a great matchup for you to see. Also on the card, though, we would be remiss if we did not talk about this particular matchup. You have Nico, the Steel City Kid Cornejo, taking on Adrian Lee. Now, Nico Cornejo is the only Colorado fighter born and bred who is on this card. Josh and I have had the opportunity to call multiple fights of his with Colorado Combat Club, whether it be in his amateur run or during his professional days so far. I have history with Nico all the way back to when we were kids. I mean, we wrestled against each other in middle school, played football against each other in high school. Yeah, and obviously, like I say, this is just from a homer perspective, if you will. This is awesome to see someone that, you know, you grew up and have known for, you know, 20 plus years now, getting the chance to have an opportunity on a global scale. And he takes on Adrian Lee, the Hawaiian prospect, the youngest of the Fighting Lee family. Josh, you know, how do you feel that now we've had fighters from our show go to the UFC, we've had them go to Bellator, now we have one go to One FC, to One Championship.
I think that's amazing. I love that he's getting his opportunity. And, you know, though I'm not from here, Yinzer proud Yinzer. And but it's awesome to just see that story of a local guy working his tail off to get an opportunity. And now he has that opportunity. So I'm excited for him to go out and snatch that opportunity up and do something awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely, folks. That wraps up our talk for this weekend's One Championship 168 event. Again, you can check that out at Ball Arena on Amazon Prime or watch.onefc.com. Transitioning to Bellator Championship Series this weekend happening in San Diego. You have Usman Nurmagomedov in the main event for the Bellator Lightweight Championship, taking on Alexander Shabali. Now, we could be seeing the very final days of Usman in Bellator, Josh. It's been widely reported, widely rumored, and all but confirmed that once his contract situation is up, he'll be going over to the UFC, joining his brother and his cousins, and trying to continue along, I would say father's plan, but I guess in this case, it's uncle's plan.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me that he wouldn't stay in Bellator. I understand the whole concept behind it. UFC's number one. You want to get to UFC, you want to be that legacy with your family. But at the same time, wouldn't it be kind of cool if you had one at each huge platform? Like what if one of them went to ONE FC, one's at Bellator, then one's at UFC and the UFC, and like they keep just taking over all of them? That would be even cooler.
Yeah, I think it just ultimately comes down to legacy.
And father's plan.
And that's all a part of father's plan. And
Yeah.
that being the case, I mean, he is the undefeated Bellator champion, but how many people know or recognize him as one of the top 55ers in the world outside of the MMA hardcore?
And that's the thing. Like that's
the legacy.
legacy
and
is
especially when he has his brother in the UFC,
yeah.
who is on the outside looking in of a title shot there. Everybody knows who he is. He's not the champion yet. Usman is further along in terms of accomplishments. Nobody knows who he is.
And that's a bad job on Bellator.
100%, which is why they're in the position that they're in. But that's a horse that we have beat to a dead bloody pulp at this stage. Also, another fighter on the card that we want to discuss and highlight, you have Lorenz Larkin. He's at the twilight stages of his career, but his first round knockout against Alan Dominguez at PFL 6 last June proved that he definitely still has a lot of fight left in the tank, Josh. I mean, he's going to need to be on his game with the foe more than 10 years his junior coming out of Georgia, the country Georgia, at 13-2, Levon Chakali. Now, the 27-year-old's only losses are to highly respected vets like Goichi Yamauchi, who has more than 20-plus submissions in his career, and a hammer like Kyle Crouchmer. We always talk about who you lose to matters. And then, Josh, just to take a minute real quick to pay some respect to the resume of Lorenz Larkin, not all of these were wins, but to have these names, those battles, some of them fighting multiple times on a career that spanned more than 15 years across multiple major organizations, you just have to tip your old cap to him. And starting off at the top of the list here, Josh, fought King Mo,
who
fought Robbie Lawler,
what,
Chris Camozzi,
who,
Santiago Ponzinibbio,
who,
Brad Tavares,
that's scary,
Derek Brunson,
ooh,
Gamebred Masvidal,
that's even scarier,
the Haitian sensation Neil Magny,
jeez, always,
Douglas Lima,
who,
Semtex Paul Daly,
Semtex,
Andre Koreshkov,
who,
Strikeforce, the UFC, Bellator, PFL. He's fought for them all.
Not a lot of people can say been there, done that. He can say that
100%. And like I say, that's a guy who you have to respect the veterans while they're still around, and he's always going to have an exciting performance that he's going to look to put on for the crowd. As we move forward here, folks, we are going to close out the hour by going 3 rounds. Man, I'm so glad that we have the big ends back in the building here to go 3 rounds and bounce it off here. But as always, behind the glass, we got my man, Danny Bailey, holding it down. First round. What do we have?
All right, I don't have my bell right now, but I'll
Ding,
get it
ding,
for
ding.
round 2. All right, former UFC champion Jessica Andrade sues ex-coach for allegedly embezzling $2 million. Any thoughts?
Does Jessica Andrade understand the definition of embezzling? And where did she get $2 million?
Well, to be fair, she was a champion, and she
This is
does
true.
have multiple bonuses that she earned throughout that run. Now, looking further into the details with this story, part of the situation was her coach also managed her finances and her accounts.
Okay. Yeah. See,
So
that's all feelings, no facts right there from me. I have no idea.
exactly. And so when confronted in the process, he said, or he blamed it on her Amazon spending habits. But then in the investigation, when she hired legal counsel, it turned out that in relation to her 2 million in earnings that disappeared, there was only roughly like allegedly like 10,000 in Amazon purchases.
What
So where did the rest of it go was what per the MMA fighting article that I read about it. And then also she said in the process that there were transfers off to people that, you know, she had no idea of who they were. Her, along with a few other female fighters who are all on the UFC roster, were also coached and managed by this same guy and recently left earlier this year. And he has since now gone back to Brazil, with all of them being here stateside. She is suing, but there could be complications as he is now international. And, you know, the question is, how are they going to be able to go about this with him not being here anymore?
How crazy and sexist is it that you tell a woman you just spending too much money on Amazon? 10,000 compared to 2 million. That's
pretty
a
wild.
huge. That's a
It's a
reach, buddy.
Pretty
That's a
crazy
reach.
discrepancy. Second round.
Torres Finney has been rebooked to fight on week 8 of the Contender series after failing to secure a contract and drawing controversial criticism from Dana White. Is the third time the charm for Finney to impress the boss.
I'm up in the air on this one. I like that he's getting another opportunity here, but if the issue from a couple of weeks ago was that you felt like his skill set wasn't polished enough or that he wasn't ready for the UFC level, then he sure as hell is not that much more improved in only about a month's worth of training time. I mean, Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's only so much that can be improved upon on such a small amount of time. And he's basically going into this fight with the same skill set that he had going into the last fight, which is what drew the criticism.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's a smart decision. I mean, who am I to say anything about smart? But I don't think it's a smart decision about like Torres Finney is not a small cat, dude. Like that weight cut has to suck. I mean, he's small.
He's
vertically
undersized for the division,
He's
but he's
vertically
a thick guy.
challenged,
Yeah.
yes, but he is yoked. So, like to cut that weight once and then to have to do it again in a short period of time, yeah, you're not going to gain much skill in that time. And on the other side, if the boss man said, "Hey, I think you need to go out and get more fights," because they said that last year, and he only went out and got one fight, not because he didn't want to, just it's hard to book a fight for him locally and regionally. But like, what is the brass doing here? Like, is it an argument between Dana and the matchmakers? Like, I want him to have another fight, and Dana's like, I don't know if he's good enough.
Well, I think some of it was that Dana received a lot of backlash for the criticism that he gave the kid, but then the Finney camp came back and said, well, you told us to go get these fights, but then we were supposed to be on tough, so we didn't have a fight because we were there. Then they chose to go the international route, so I was out, and all that time where I could have potentially had something, didn't.
Yeah.
Then Contender Series season comes up. I do take the one fight in May leading up to this, but it was obviously only the one. And so, yeah, I think that it's maybe in relation to some of the backlash that he got and potentially Dana, dare I say, not knowing some of the little nuances of that situation, which then it's like, okay, well, then I guess we'll give you a shot. But it's also, to me, again, it's well, be careful what you wish for, because if you already showed skill for skill that you are not ready, or that at best you're a one contract guy. And I'm not trying to knock Finney by any means, but right now at 25, where he sits at 9-0, he's a one contract skill set kind of guy.
Yeah.
The goal is not just to get there. The goal is to stay there, to get to that second, third, fourth, and beyond contracts to where you're actually making some money to show for all of what you put your body through.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't get it on the third shot, where do you go? What do you do? And if Dana doesn't pick him and he wins, no matter it's a decision or knockout, whatever, what are we doing here?
Wait, then you got to go do what Anthony Smith has suggested. You got to go, do stuff that the example set by guys like Chris Curtis of the world, who, all right, well, I didn't get a contract out the Contender Series. Okay, well, I'm going to go fight everybody possible on the local and regional scene, anybody and everybody who is willing to sign the dotted line, because ultimately, I don't care who you are. I don't care who he is over there. I believe that I should be at that level. So for me, my job is just to go in there and fight. It doesn't matter who you are. If I really am that guy, if my skills, if my abilities really do land me amongst the top echelon of the world, then it doesn't matter who it is on this local and regional scene. I'm going to go out there and fight so that I can become undeniable and earn that opportunity that you were saying that I need more experience for.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, he's a very interesting character. And I think that I hope it goes well.
Absolutely. Last round.
Longtime UFC vet Joe Lauzon told MMAfighting.com, probably likely that I won't fight again, but still not retiring from the UFC. Is this a wise choice?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's smart. Joe just had his 40th birthday a couple of months back. Joe Lauzon being one of those guys who first rose to prominence with an upset victory over Little Evil Jens Pulver, the former UFC champion, in his very first UFC fight in his early 20s, then goes on and was a standout on season 5 of The Ultimate Fighter. Didn't win the whole season, but was a fixture of that season, and just grew to stardom through the years with some top matchups. And he's a guy who corners and coaches a lot, and he will continue to be on the scene and has a lot to offer, Josh. But fighting window is it's past.
And like that's Joe Lauzon, or as Danny so eloquently put it, Joe Lauzon. Yeah, it was like one of the fighters for me when I was first coming up. Like that season of Jens Pulver and coaching and everything, like that was the season that I fell in love with Joe Lauzon. Like he's quiet, he's meek, he's kind of a nerd, and like you wouldn't expect him to be that good. But just like great recall, the earlier in the show when I was like, the beauty of fighting is you just don't know. And if you got it, you got it. Joe Lauzon has had it. And if he doesn't, not retiring, I think is smart in the long run, with all the things going on outside of actual fighting with legal process. And I think that's a smart idea for him. But yeah, he's a legend and a Hall of Famer, I believe. So he can do whatever he wants.
Totally. And, just to speak to the appearance side, we spoke on it last week for the Labor Day episode in Tough, where he revealed that he worked in tech prior to that. And, I thought initially, like, especially during that season, he looked like Mouse from The Matrix, like the guy who made the computer program, like the woman in the red dress type of thing, just looked like this unassuming sort of nerd, but he's one of those legit nerd assassins.
Yeah.
Him and his brother, there's videos that you can go look at if you want to know the true legacy of somebody like Joe Lauzon and just how much of a hardened Massachusetts boy he is. There's videos of him and his brother straight up having full-on MMA fights in the front yard with the neighbors watching. Go out and check those out. That you won't be disappointed from an entertainment factor. But just like that, folks, we are all out of time. We want to thank you all so much for tuning in with us each and every week for Original Combat Sports programming. I mean, we got the big yins back in the house with us this week. And guys, if you have the opportunity, please smash that subscribe button and follow Mile High Sports on all social channels. We want to give a big shout out to our man, Danny Bailey, for holding it down for us every single week. And this weekend, if you have the opportunity, come say what's up at the One Championship Show. I'll be there. Otherwise, we'll see you back next week. Same time, same place. I'm Jordan Kurtz. Give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery, sitting alongside the big yins, Josh Fremd at Josh Fremd
Do
MMA.
not follow me. Do not come talk to me at the One Championship fights.
Just like that, folks, you have it for the week. We are the MMA plug on Mile High Sports.